economic growth, but also in the global economic order. And there is a lot of interest in Turkey, especially from the perspective of promoting economic cooperation, trade and economic cooperation with India, but also to broaden the overall bilateral relationship. As I mentioned, the leaders had met twice already. There are economic opportunities created in India, as you know, under the present government as a result of economic reforms and the thrust on transformational changes in Indian economy. So those opportunities have been noticed, and this forms the context, the significance of both the economies as large economies, G20 economies, the interaction between the leaders previously, and also the significance of the economic opportunities created in India for broadening and consolidating the economic partnership, the economic relationship between the two countries. So the president obviously arrived yesterday. He's accompanied by the First Lady, Madam Erdogan, and there are 5 cabinet ministers, which are Ministers of Foreign Affairs, Minister of Economy, Minister of Energy, Minister of Culture and Tourism, and Minister of Transport, Communications and Maritime Affairs in the delegation of the President of Turkey. Besides, there is also, of course, the Chief of General Staff, parliamentarians and senior officials, and very importantly, and this is very indicative of what the thrust of this visit is. There is about 200 strong business delegation accompanying the president. We will speak about this dimension a little later. During the visit, of course, in the morning, as is customary for the state visits, the president was accorded a ceremonial welcome at Rashtrapati Bhavan, which he very much appreciated. He paid homage to the father of the nation at Rajghat this morning, and I must say that he referred to the father of the nation in his conversation with our leadership a few times. You might have heard his remarks as well. The President, Rashtrapati ji, will be meeting him later and will be hosting him over a banquet, which will be in the honor of the visiting President. The Vice President meeting is perhaps ongoing right now, or is about to begin. And of course, the External Affairs Minister called on the visiting dignitary today forenoon. As I mentioned, the business forum event, the business delegation, is one of the highlights of this visit. A strong business delegation is indicative of the focus and the significance attached by both the countries to consolidating their trade and economic relations. Currently, the trade is about $6.4 billion, which incidentally, when the President Erdogan came as Prime Minister in 2008, was around $2.5 billion or so. So in the past about 7-8 years, it has become about let's say 2.5 times the increase in the trade. So the leaders have agreed to raise this trade to $10 billion. And the visit of the President provided this very important opportunity for the business leaders and captains of the industry from both the countries to interact with each other. As you are aware, the President of Turkey as well as the Prime Minister addressed the India-Turkey Business Forum, which took place in the morning. And in fact, the business meetings are going on. In the morning, there was inauguration jointly by both the leaders. And you would have heard what the President of Turkey said there and what the Prime Minister said there. Those remarks are already in the public domain, so I'm not going to dwell on them. Suffice it to say that there is a very great realization of the economic opportunities, as I mentioned earlier, and the urgency to use those opportunities for promoting mutually beneficial trade and commercial ties. I have mentioned to you about the target of $10 billion. And the Turkish president obviously evinced keen interest in government's flagship programs and Turkey's participation in them. He specifically mentioned the participation in Make in India program and also in the 100 Smart Cities program. Uh, our Prime Minister mentioned to him that the requirements that we have and the competencies we have, as well as the competencies and the strengths of the Turkish economy, Turkey, they make us natural partners. Uh, so this is a very good platform for us to develop. Uh, then there is also the hope expressed by our Prime Minister that the Turkish companies will be very active and will be able to tap into the opportunities provided by the Indian economy. And as you would have heard the Prime Minister say in his press statement that he would welcome the participation of Turkey in these opportunities with open arms. There was also discussion on promoting tourism and people-to-people contacts, because not merely for the purpose of tourism, but the people, as the President of Turkey also mentioned, they are very important because they are the vehicles of culture. India and Turkey share a very deep-rooted historical, cultural relationship going back to millennia, and the people and the interaction among people of both the countries, between the peoples of both the countries, that forms a key part of this cultural and historical relationship. So there was obviously conversation on expanding tourism, on promoting films. The strength of Indian film industry was mentioned. The Indian film industry also in the regions, not only Hindi films, but also regional films, which are global blockbusters. And the opportunities, of course, offered by the Turkish entertainment industry, which also produces products which are very popular and commercially very successful. So it was agreed that there is a great opportunity in promoting tourism and cooperation in cultural and entertainment sector. The visit of the President to India also has provided, obviously there will be discussions with the Vice President and President also, but so far it has provided an opportunity to exchange views between the two countries at a high level on global developments, on international situation, and on the situation in both our regions. There is, of course, these type of conversations, as you know, help to promote better understanding and encourage more convergence of views on matters of mutual interest. There was a long discussion on and detailed discussion on terrorism. You have seen the Prime Minister's press statement, and I would like to point out that the Prime Minister mentioned that he and President Erdogan agreed to work together to strengthen the cooperation between India and Turkey, both bilaterally and multilaterally, to effectively counter the menace of terrorism. The Prime Minister also mentioned that that the leaders agreed that no intent or goal or no reason or rationale can validate terrorism. The nations of the world need to work as one to disrupt terrorist networks and their financing and put a stop to cross-border movement of terrorists. And they need to stand and act against those that conceive and create, support and sustain, shelter and spread these instruments and ideologies of violence. So there was a very significant conversation, detailed conversation and discussion on terrorism. You would also see the joint statement, which we will issue later on in the evening, once the formal engagements, official engagements are over. And but I can tell you that from the readout on the meetings that I have, the leaders reiterated their strong condemnation and resolute opposition to terrorism in all forms and manifestations, wherever committed and by whomever committed. And they urged all countries and entities to work sincerely to disrupt terrorist networks and financing and stop cross-border movement of terrorists. So this is the point I have mentioned to you. They also strongly condemned the use of double standards in addressing the menace of terrorism and agreed to strengthen cooperation in combating terrorism. This I have covered both bilaterally and multilaterally. They called for early conclusion of negotiations on CCIT, Comprehensive Convention on International Terrorism. The Prime Minister thanked the visiting dignitary for the support of Turkey to India because there is a convergence in our views on UNSC reforms, and also on Turkey's support for India's membership of the MTCR, and for our aspirations to join the nuclear suppliers group, and also, of course, Turkey's support for India's membership of Wassenaar arrangement. The visiting dignitary has extended an invitation to the Prime Minister to visit Turkey, which has been accepted. And as you know, the dates have to be finalized through diplomatic channels as per mutual convenience. But before I conclude, I would mention that the agreements or MOUs which have been signed, they are in public domain. You would be aware about them. Well, that pretty much brings me to the close of what I had to mention to you in terms of the readout that I have from the official engagement so far. I will be very happy to answer to a couple of questions that you might have. This is already more than a couple of questions. All right. We should begin from the first row.
सर, क्या दोनों नेताओं के बीच में कश्मीर को लेकर कोई बात हुई, क्योंकि टर्की के प्रेसिडेंट कश्मीर को लेकर जो स्टैंड रखते हैं और जिस तरह पाकिस्तान को सपोर्ट करते हैं, उस पाकिस्तान को जिसकी आर्मी ने आज इंडियन आर्मी के दो जवान के साथ आज बर्बरतापूर्ण कार्रवाई की है?
So was FTA between India and Turkey discussed? Because in the morning business meet, the Turkish president did mention about the foreign trade agreement.
So there were also discussions on lack of investments that India is doing in Turkey that the president sort of raised in the meeting in morning. Also, anything on NSG? Thank you.
So there was no specific reference to India's membership bid for the NSG or Turkey supporting it, either in the PM statement or in the President's statement made at Hyderabad House. So just wanted a clarification. Why was there no specific reference to India's NSG membership bid? And the terror aspect that you mentioned just now in the readout, that both the nations condemned terror, but it seemed as if they had a very different view of things, because the PM spoke about cross-border terror and the Turkish president spoke about FETÖ, but there was little else by way of convergence.
Okay, let's complete here and then we can go that side. Yeah.
So this is not about the Turkish president's visit. Anything on a BAT team of Pakistan attacking our two soldiers?
This briefing, as I mentioned in the beginning, is about the Turkish president's visit. Let me remain focused on this. I understand your question, but maybe on another occasion.
Were there any specific corporate deals between companies that can be announced?
All right. Okay.
What assurance India has given on FETÖ to Turkish president?
Okay. Not necessarily in the order in which it was asked, but I'll respond. NSG, I think I mentioned quite clearly that the Prime Minister thanked the President of Turkey for, because Turkey is supportive of our aspirations. They support India's membership of NSG. Because you haven't yet seen all the statements which are usually issued. So till the time the joint statement is issued, I can't say anything further. So I hope it answers your question. So that's a tick mark on my list. On corporate deals, I'm not aware of any specific deals worked out because, as you know, I had been with the official engagements between the dignitaries. But as you know, the India-Turkey forum was inaugurated by both the leaders in the morning, and the forum is actually continuing through the day. It's a very strong business delegation, as I mentioned, 200 about thereabouts, maybe a little more business leaders. They've met Indian business leaders and Indian industry captains, and I can tell you from the feedback that I have is that there is enormous interest and potential on both sides. So it is our hope that there will be very encouraging outcomes, very encouraging specific outcomes, but I do not have specific details as of now. On FTA, I'm not aware whether this is specifically figured. I will have to check it out. But there is a general, as I mentioned, the context of the visit that I put forward to you in the beginning of my my statement to you today is to broad base and expand the economic relationship and economic cooperation between the two countries. Obviously, the legal frameworks for that are important, and the two leaders agreed that the meeting of the India-Turkey Joint Economic Cooperation Commission, that is a very important mechanism. So I'm sure the two sides will look at whatever the relevant mechanisms and instruments are. On the issue of FATO. And of course, you asked about the convergence or lack of convergence because we spoke about terrorism and cross-border terrorism. So I would suggest that the visit is not over. Let's wait for some of the outcome that are usually associated with such visits. But in broad terms, I can tell you that obviously, as I said, there was a detailed conversation on terrorism, and of course, our viewpoint was put across to the Turkish leader. And as far as the activities of the Turkish concerns about FATO are concerned, they were mentioned to us. And what I can tell you is that any organization in India, whether it is Indian or foreign, obviously has to work within the parameters of our laws and our norms and regulations. So that position is quite clear. I hope I have asked the question about the terrorism, whether there was convergence or not. There is as you have seen, there will, and as you will see later today perhaps, there is condemnation, there is convergence on condemning terrorism, there is convergence in the view that terrorism is a menace, it poses threat to peace and stability and needs to be fought very effectively. So those elements that I have given you from the readout of the meetings, some of them you will find reflected more formally in the course of the rest of the day today. As far as Kashmir is concerned, आपने जो सवाल पूछा कश्मीर के बारे में, देखिए कश्मीर के बारे में जो भारत का पक्ष है वो हमेशा से बहुत प्रखर और मुखर रहा है. आपको पता है कि साफ रहा है कि सारा कश्मीर, जम्मू एंड कश्मीर, सारा पूरा का पूरा राज्य हमारा हिस्सा है, भारत का एक अभिन्न हिस्सा है. तो जो मैं इस बारे में नहीं कहना चाहता कि जो विजिटिंग डिग्निटरी हैं उन्होंने कल क्या कहा या परसों क्या कहा या पहले क्या कहा. मैं आपको खाली ये बताना चाह रहा हूँ, जो मेरा पर्पस है आपसे आज बात करने में, वो ये कि मुलाकात के दौरान क्या बातचीत हुई। तो मुलाकात के दौरान जो बातचीत हुई तो उसमें सर्टेनली हमने जो टेररिज्म के बारे में, कश्मीर के बारे में जो हमारा पक्ष है, जो हमारा नज़रिया है, वो हमने उनके सामने रखा। और ये बात बिल्कुल खुलकर सामने आई कि कोई भी वजह क्यों ना हो, आतंकवाद का कोई जस्टिफिकेशन नहीं हो सकता, उसको किसी भी तरीके से आप जस्टिफाई नहीं कर सकते, चाहे आपका उद्देश्य या गोल या इंटेंट कुछ भी क्यों ना हो। और what we so this position that the issue of Kashmir is essentially an issue which is terrorism, ये आतंकवाद का मुद्दा है, ये पक्ष हमने बहुत स्पष्ट तरीके से प्रस्तुत किया, उसको रखा। और आप आगे देखेंगे इस संदर्भ में कि आतंकवाद के ऊपर जो दोनों नेताओं के बीच में बातचीत हुई है, दोनों देशों के बीच में बातचीत हुई है, उसको थोड़ा और स्पष्ट और औपचारिक तरीके से जब आप देखेंगे रेस्ट ऑफ द डे में, तो आपको दिखाई देगा कि उस पे जो हमारे नज़रिया है वो कितना मिलता है आतंकवाद का मुकाबला करने के लिए। नहीं, जहाँ तक मुझे पता है इस आज की मुलाकात में इस तरह की कोई बात नहीं हुई। हमने जो अपना पक्ष रखा वो हमारा जो पक्ष आपको पता है, जो हमने कहा कि हम आतंकवाद के विक्टिम रहे हैं, आतंकवाद के शिकार रहे हैं 40 साल से। वी हैव बीन विक्टिम्स ऑफ टेररिज्म, क्रॉस बॉर्डर टेररिज्म एंड स्टेट स्पॉन्सर टेररिज्म, ये बात हमने कही। और जहाँ तक कश्मीर मुद्दे का सवाल है, तो वो मुद्दा तो हम पाकिस्तान के साथ बात करने के लिए तैयार रहे हैं हमेशा से। और हमारा तो हमेशा से ये कहना रहा है कि कोई भी मुद्दा क्यों ना हो, खाली कश्मीर का ही नहीं, सारे मुद्दे दोनों देशों के बीच द्विपक्षीय आधार पर शांतिपूर्ण तरीके से उनका समाधान निकाला जा सकता है, उनके बारे में बातचीत करनी चाहिए, ये पहले भी कहा गया है। तो ये पक्ष की हम इस सरकार ने और पहले भी बहुत प्रयास किए गए हैं द्विपक्षीय वार्ता के लिए, बायलैटरल टॉक्स के लिए पाकिस्तान से, और उस जिससे कि कश्मीर या और किसी जो भी मुद्दे हैं दोनों देशों के बीच में उनको एड्रेस किया जा सके। ये बात ये पक्ष हमने प्रस्तुत किया कि हम बायलैटरली इसको एड्रेस करना चाहते हैं पाकिस्तान के साथ। दे लिसनड वेरी केयरफुली, they listened with care, and I would say they listened with care and attention to what we had to say. And our case essentially was that Kashmir is an issue of terrorism which has dogged us for 40 years, cross-border terrorism, state-sponsored terrorism. And as far as the issue is concerned, we are obviously ready to address any issue between India and Pakistan bilaterally through peaceful means, as has been stipulated in Shimla Agreement and of course Lahore Declaration. Last two questions, okay. Oma. 2.5, you are raising only half a hand. All right.
सर, भारत हमेशा से शांतिपूर्ण द्विपक्षीय बातचीत का पक्षधर रहा है, लेकिन जिस तरह की घटना को आज अंजाम दिया गया है, क्या उससे ये प्रक्रिया शुरू होने में और विलंब हो सकती है?
ये मुद्दा तुर्की के राष्ट्रपति के साथ बातचीत में नहीं आया, तो मैंने आपके सवाल का जवाब दिया उसको ये जामा पहना करके। Elizabeth.
Mr. Bagli, you mentioned $10 billion, that the trade has to be increased to 10 billion. Is there any year by when we hope to increase it to $10 billion?
Yes, thank you for reminding me. The year by which we both intend to increase the trade to $10 billion is basically 2020, and basically what the two leaders discussed is that they will encourage, let me put these words more correctly, that the two leaders agreed to encourage the business leaders of the countries and businesses of the two countries to make efforts for achieving US $10 billion bilateral trade turnover by 2020. Kallol, and then last question, Geeta.
So you are asking us to wait for the joint statement, which anyway is waiting for. But then we saw what the Turkish president said today. And while our prime minister very clearly and he elaborated the case about cross-border terrorism, the president of Turkey spoke about the left-wing extremism attack in Sukma. But the cross-border terrorism, that issue did not come across that strongly from the Turkish president's speech. Are you not taking up that disagreement over cross-border terrorism with Turkey? Is there a difference of opinion on cross-border terrorism, especially since even Syria accuses Turkey of cross-border terrorism?
Kalol, I made it very clear that what we have discussed is the issue in great detail. There has been a detailed conversation on terrorism. All forms and manifestations have to be effectively fought and defeated. There has been conversation about cooperating bilaterally and multilaterally. There has been a conversation that the terrorism is a menace and it must be stopped. As I said, from the readout that I have of the meetings, that there was, and I would repeat for your benefit, a strong condemnation and a strong condemnation of and resolute opposition to terrorism in all forms and manifestations, wherever committed and by whomever committed. And of course, that there can't be any justification. And both sides urged all countries and entities to work sincerely to disrupt terrorist networks and financing and stop cross-border movement of terrorists. So I don't see, in the light of what I said earlier and repeated just now for your benefit, I don't see why you would have any doubts in your mind. Geeta?
Did the Indian side raise concerns, this is again to do with Kashmir, did the Indian side raise concerns regarding Turkey's support to Pakistan-backed resolutions at the OIC on Kashmir?
Well, on Kashmir, as I said, what we put forward was our point of view, how we view Kashmir, which is Jammu and Kashmir, an integral part of India, and the Kashmir problem as such, having a predominant dimension of terrorism, cross-border terrorism, which needs to be defeated and is stopped by those who are perpetuating it. And of course, the bilateral political aspect of Kashmir issue that I said earlier can be discussed peacefully, has to be discussed peacefully, bilaterally between India and Pakistan, as has been provided in Shimla Agreement and Lahore Declaration. Thank you all. Thank you very much once again for coming here at a very short notice. Have a good evening.